Alright, we're gonna go ahead and get started here real quick. I'll run through the agenda and then let Peggy say first before we get started, but thanks everyone for coming. So William Morris will speak first, and then answer any questions that people have after he's done speaking. He's got some family obligations to go through. Then the next 4 people to go will be the Travis Huber, Paula Openhour, Peggy Frame, and myself. We'll give a 3 to 5 minute speech and then answer any questions regarding the fiscal court position. And then once that's done, then we have Lori Burbank-Crook here, David Doyle, Noah Cobb, and Consuela Alley. Dr. Alley, reporter and 3 city commissioner positions, and we'll go through the same exercise. So without further ado, right?
All right, let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. We ask that you be with us during this meeting, and all that is said and done will be pleasing to you. Go with us now as we conduct this meeting. Lead us, guide us, and direct us as we all walk in your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, good afternoon. Good to be here. Glad to see everybody come out today. I walked in and the first thing I heard was we're happy about the tax break. So we are working on the taxes. I don't know if you guys have seen our Facebook page. I went last Friday, actually got to sit in on the bill signing of the lowering the income tax rate. So this will lower it to 4%. We will eventually, the hope is to phase that out. Now, when we passed the legislation, when we talked about the budget reserve, especially in the chamber forum, when my opponent talked about we need to blow all that money, the reason we didn't do that was so that we could continually lower that tax and hopefully eventually get completely rid of the income tax, which affects obviously all of us. We're all working class people. We're all having to pay that tax. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, the people of Kentucky have as much money in their pockets as possible, because that affects the bottom line for everything. The second thing, I want to say how exciting it is to see a ballot like this. This is not even a presidential year, and we were just actually having this conversation, and I have had this conversation with so many people. You normally during a off year or when it's not the presidential election, you don't really hear a lot about elections. It's sort of quiet, you don't hear a lot about it. But it's exciting to see so many people that have signed up, because this is what democracy is all about. That we have people running opposed, that we don't just let people be shoe-ins, and that's not that we're out to beat certain people or anything like that. It's just we are wanting to partake in our democracy, and I think it's exciting because you drive through town now and you see these signs literally everywhere. I mean, if you don't know it's an election season, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but you can very well tell. And so obviously I represent 4 counties, and it's the same almost in every county that I represent. Harrison County, Brockley County, Robertson County, we have people running for almost every single seat. I think that's great. I encourage people to do that. I especially start to encourage younger people to get involved. You wouldn't believe the people that I walk up to, and I'm like, "You're the state representative?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not even that young. I'm now in my 30s. I feel old." And my kids are like, getting up here at my height. But it's exciting to start seeing things happening like that. I don't really have anything particular to say anything, but if you guys want to ask some questions, I'd be happy to answer them. All right, Travis, you got one.
Could you talk everybody through Amendment 1 just a little bit?
Sure. Okay, so on the back of your ballot, when you go in, I'm going to be doing an informational video that we're going to share to kind of explain some of these.
You're doing it right now?
I'm not going to try to sway you either way. I will, however, tell you that I voted for both. So I was co-sponsor on both of these amendments. So take that for what it's worth. I'm not going to try to talk to you either way, but I will explain them. So Amendment 1, I personally think is a great bill. I was a co-sponsor. But you get 60-day sessions and then a 30-day session. So during that session, we have to wrap up that 60 days. And I'm just going to be very, very honest with you. There are days, and I think that's why I won, because I just tell it how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are days that we go in on the floor that certain bills aren't ready to be filed, they aren't ready to move forward because someone has a problem with it, you don't wanna put a bill on the floor that's gonna die, especially when you have the Republican majority, and it looks like we got problems within, you know. So they will call us into session, you know, because we have to use the days, we have to use the 60 days by the deadline. We'll go in, and because that bill's not ready, recess within 30 minutes. And so we burn up an entire legislative day. So the amendment 1, if you vote yes for that, you're saying that we can take those 60 days and we could use 20 at the first part of the year, we could wait and use the next 20 middle ways through the year, and you know, whatever's remaining farther into the year. It would also prevent us having to wait for a special session to be called. And I'm gonna tell you bluntly, special session costs about $70,000 to $80,000 per day that we're in the house. I don't get that, I promise you, you get $188, it doesn't pay much. So, when they go in, it's 70 grand per day, roughly, that it costs for us to be a special session because of all the LAs being called in, all of our assistants, all the police officers, state troopers, you name it, it's all happening there. So this would be a great bill. It would allow us some freedom to not have to just burn up those days, for lack of a better way to put it, so.
So you can extend that 60 days?
No, we cannot extend, oh, yes, I
You're
see
not
what you're saying.
adding to
We
your
cannot
60?
add to the days, we can only have
But
60.
you're changing the
Yes.
time frame.
Yeah, from January 1 to December 31st, we can use the 60 days, however we.
hadn't read it.
Well, if you read this, I don't know that you'd ever pick that up, because I tried, I was like, geez, that's hard to understand. But I'm giving you the 70th district version.
How much does a normal day cost versus special session?
It's the same thing, I mean, it roughly costs about $70,000 a day that we're in session.
So because you can then space out over time, the county taxpayer is gonna actually have a benefit because you're actually gonna get things done.
The state taxpayers, everyone, any taxpayer period, it's a benefit to them because we're able to utilize that time more wisely. We wouldn't have, so when Western Kentucky got hit with the tornadoes and all the things that happened down there, we had to be called into special session in order to allocate money for them. So not only did we have to pull out of the budget reserve to send them, which was why we put the budget reserve there, we sent them $250 million roughly, but it also cost the taxpayers 4 days for us to be in session because a bill, when it's brought up, has to have 3 readings. That's the constitutional law. So it has to be read on day 1, read on day 2, read on day 3, and passed on day 4. Because, you know, then there wasn't access, but I guess the rules there wasn't access for people. You couldn't find it. So you'd have to want to be there wasn't internet, you know, you couldn't go find these bills. Now when a bill's filed, I mean, people, that afternoon, within 20 minutes of bills being filed, sometimes I'm getting calls, I don't like this bill, I'm taxing. Oh my God, we'll fight it, we'll do whatever we gotta do. Then, obviously, Amendment 2, which you're seeing the signs everywhere, vote yes on 2. Vote yes on 2 will amend our Constitution to say, and to clearly ratify the Constitution, saying that there is no right to an abortion in the Kentucky State Constitution. The reason we're doing that, obviously, the federal government overturned Roe versus Wade, which then passes it down to each and every state to make their own decision. So every state can make the decision, do we want to allow abortions? We simply are putting into our Constitution that no federal judge can interpret the Constitution to say that there is a right to abortion. Now, I've heard a lot of, I'm going to get in the weeds a little bit here, but I'll try to stay as close to, you know, I'll keep it kosher. There are a lot of people that are attacking and saying that there are no provisions for like certain rape or incest. That's the truth. That is true. There is nothing in there. This is not saying that we're outlawing it. We're saying that there is no right to it in the Constitution. Then, moving forward, I think there needs to be some work. I mean, you know, I think that we really need to work on the adoption system, and I'm not going to get way off in the weeds on that, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done because there are children that are being born that don't have a good home, and we need to have a place for it. We can't just fix one problem without fixing all of them. So. Any other questions? Man, tough crowd. Come on, at least one more. Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
so your 60 days, do you think that you'll reserve some for toward the end of the year so that if there's an emergency,
Mhm.
like,
That's the
What
plan, is
happens
just to
if
be able to use, like, say, 5 days until maybe the last month of the year. We know that, hey, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna go ahead and use them to do whatever we need to do, to get some legislation ready for the next session, whatever it might be, but yeah.
Can you explain a little bit how the special session would be called versus the way it is
So,
today?
a special session can be called by the governor. So, obviously with the Republican majority and the Democratic governor, sometimes that's hard to get done. We have a lot of issues even with the Western Kentucky thing, getting a special session called for us to get the money to them, but it finally came in and done it, and, you know, it just hadn't done. Which is why, I will say this, the income tax bill that we signed into law, if you look at the pictures of all of us standing behind the Secretary of State, the reason for that, I've had people ask why wasn't the governor there. That's not us, that's the law. He vetoed that bill originally during session. So when we overrode it and put it into law, the Secretary of State constitutionally then has to sign that bill for the law, not the governor, because he overrode it. So. Or he vetoed it, we overrode it.
But if I'm reading this correctly, the head of the Senate and the head of the House can call a special session.
In the amendment, yes, they could call a special session,
But
no matter who
today,
the governor is.
but today the governor's wanting to do that.
Right, yes, right.
So that would also be a thing.
Well, even, I'll say this, even when we had the Republican majority in the House and Senate, we had issues one time with Matt Bevin. So this is not just a party thing, this is
Yeah, I understand.
the House, because we are the people's representatives. We, as representatives and senators, actually are more engaged in our communities than what, I understand, one man versus 100 men or women working in the communities, it makes more sense. As a representative, I'm here with you. You can call me on the cell phone, do I get hold of Andy Bashir or the head of the, Senate, that matter. So, it just makes sense for us to be able to have a little bit more freedom to do what needs to be done for people.
And it's more practical.
Yeah.
Can the governor call a special session?
Yes.
He still would be able.
He can still call us,
He
but
can
we're not
still call.
taking his power away to do that. We're simply saying that if there's something that needs to be done, we could
Call a special
go on and do it. But the hope is, with saving the banking in those days, we wouldn't have to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. Yes?
Sir, does it affect the governor's ability to have unchecked emergency use authorization or emergency powers?
So we actually passed legislation last year during all the COVID stuff that stripped a lot of the emergency executive order type powers away because, other states like Florida, for instance, were open and we were closed. And, thank God that Kentucky's resilient. We come back from it, but it crushed a lot of small businesses. I know people that had businesses that went under and, never recovered because they couldn't. There's no way to come back from that. So there's you could go down a whole lot of paths there, but yes, he still has some executive order because, he is the governor. That office should be respected, but it also shouldn't be one man calling all the shots for your state. Anything else?
Any final questions, Mr. Warren?
We got 19 days, guys. Thank you all. I'm gonna go carve pumpkins with my kids. See y'all.
See ya.
Okay, so up next we'll have, all the
Yep.
county commissioners and the judge executive candidate come up.
Get started?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna stand up here when I talk, I gotta walk down here. One thing, I'm not sure those people watching out in TV land, will be able to hear us if we sit up here. Travis Schubert, running for Mason County Judge Executive, and one of the reasons I decided to run was because, like Mr. Lawrence was saying, I don't think anybody ought to just get to take the position. Lifetime of service in both the military and to the public school system, it's kind of been ingrained to me even before that. I tell people I wasn't raised in Mason County. I was actually raised in Ashland, Kentucky. But I always tell people also I grew up here because we were always here working. Dad was always coming back home to the farm. Sometimes Mom didn't like that so much because her family got ignored a little bit. But we spent a lot of time here in Mason County when I was growing up. And I tell everybody that most of the important things I learned in life, I learned here on the Mason County farm. My dad taught me an immense amount of things: electrical, plumbing, how to drive a tractor, how to back up a truck. All those things built into me led me to a lifetime of service. Again, I tell people all the time, I may not be the smartest guy in the room, but you'll have a hard time finding somebody who can outwork me. And a lot of times that, between what intelligence I do have and my work ethic, I'm a tough guy to beat in just about any type of endeavor. Grew up I started working at a young age. Like I said, Dad worked me on the farm, but also I don't think I've held less than 2 jobs at a time since I was 15 years old and started cutting grass and lifeguarding at the swimming pool. And the second year I was lifeguarding at the swimming pool, they made me assistant manager. And that was probably my first real leadership role, unless you're going to count the Boy Scouts. That led me into a wealth of leadership experience that I bring to this position. My opponent has 0. Until he got appointed by the governor to his current position, he had never managed 2 people. And now we expect him to all of a sudden manage this county. That's not going to work, folks. If you look at our economy, people are hurting. Gas prices are higher than they've been in maybe ever. People are hurting, and we need real leadership to move this county forward and to keep this county operating. As a school principal and a superintendent, I've managed large budgets my entire career. Probably 20, 22 million is about the average once I became a superintendent and as I worked at the Department of Education. So not only did I manage those budgets, but I consistently asked, what is working right, what still makes sense, and how can we better and more efficiently spend this money to help the people? That's what we have to do with our county budget right now. We need to question everything we are currently doing to say, is it still relevant? Does it still make sense? Is there a better use of the money? As superintendent, I was able to look at our budget, and never once did I ask for a tax increase as a superintendent, but I was still able to look at our budget. And currently in Mason County, if you have a 3 or 4 year old and you want to send them to preschool, they have to have a qualifying disability. There is all types of research out there that says if we get kids involved in public education earlier, they do better by the time they leave high school. I looked at our budget and said, I want to put every 3 and 4 year old in our county that wants to come. We weren't mandating it, but any 3 or 4 year old that wants to come to preschool, let's make an opportunity for them to come to preschool. I analyzed our current budget, found some money in there, and we made it happen. At the same time, we offered free lunch, free breakfast, free dinner to every kid in Gallatin County schools without raising taxes. The money was there. We just had to reallocate it and spend it in a wiser way. Ethical decision making has always been at the backbone of what I've done. I won't lie, I won't cheat, and I won't steal. Never have, and I never will. If you look at the way our county government is currently functioning, I went onto the website the other day to pull minutes from the last years of county meetings. They're not on there. They're on there today only because I raised a question about it. I said, why are our minutes not on there? Because I requested a copy of them. Because I was looking for something. They purchased a vehicle the other day for the county judge executive to drive around in. Every other vehicle they've purchased for the sheriff, road department, and the jail, they've had lengthy discussions at fiscal court meetings. Talk about, let's put it out for bid. Let's talk to the local dealers about giving us a deal, getting us the best deal we can get for county money. The county judge executive, the purchase of his vehicle, there was no discussion this fiscal year. Wasn't spoken about in an open meeting at all. And you can go and look at the minutes yourself. You'll see there was no mention of it. But he took $22,000 of county money, went over to Cheap Chevrolet in Flemingsburg. For some reason, he bypassed our local car dealerships and went over there and bought a vehicle for him to drive around in. That's not the way this government's supposed to work. That fiscal court, these fiscal court members should have voted on that. There should have been some discussion about it. I won't do that. Look at our dog pound, our animal shelter. Horribly mismanaged. They've had a dog killed in their custody and control. They've had dogs illegally sold. Everything they do down there almost is operated by volunteers. All the dog food, right, comes from volunteers and donations. The county, in my opinion, if we're going to say we're going to take animals into county care and custody and control, we need to provide for those animals in a caring and humane way. And so far, that has not been done under this administration. It's been one problem after another down at the dog pound. We're going to fix that. We're going to take a look at how that piece of the government works. We're going to analyze the current shelter to see if it needs upgrades, repair, or replacement. And we're going to put money in the budget to feed the dogs that people bring us. Because it's the humane right thing to do. I had something else I was going to talk about.
What about the road department?
The road department. I had a young lady approach me today about a piece of road that has not been repaired in over a year, despite numerous calls. She said it's been so long since they put a culvert across it, so they cut the pavement and they put gravel in there, but that's been 2 years ago, and they haven't repaved it in 2 years. So we'll take a hard look at how we look at our roads. Most of our roads, we've got a lot of single lane, small rural roads in this community. It's getting to where farm equipment in this community has gotten so big that they can't travel down those roads to get from one farm to the next. Bridges are too small. We shouldn't be putting any more one-lane bridges. We've got to make them at least wide enough to get a decent-sized piece of farm equipment across there. And then the other piece about farming, my dad brought up to me the other day. He says, we're a farming community. Show me where an equipment dealer is in Mason County that sells farm equipment. And we don't have one. You got to go to Augusta or Fleming County to buy a piece of farm equipment. We ought to have an implement dealer here that our farmers can go to get parts and service. So those are all the things we'll work with the Economic Development Council to try to bring back to Mason County. The other thing, tourism. Tourism is a significant revenue source here in Mason County. As electric vehicles become more and more popular throughout the country, people can't come here with an electric vehicle as a tourist because there's no place to charge one. I think the closest charging station is either in Georgetown, Ohio, or you got to go to Moorhead, Kentucky to charge an electric vehicle, unless you just happen to know somebody that's got one in their house that'll let you use it. So a couple of electric vehicle charging stations through the downtown and up on top of the hill would be nice to help improve tourism. That's all I'm going to talk. They only gave me 5 minutes, and I've probably gone over that already. What questions do you all have for me?
I'm real curious about the electric vehicle thing. Should that be the county expense, or should?
Some of them are paid. You swipe to pay. It's not like free electricity to whoever pulls up there. So they swipe a credit card to pay for the electricity. So there might be some initial costs on the initial install, but we would recoup that through the fees that we would charge for the charging per kilowatt hour, however they do it. There's a lot of companies out there that install those and have a revenue stream. Like you could. I remember when I first moved here, there was a lawyer in town that told me he made more money off payphones than he did from his lawsuit. So he actually owned all the payphones in town and pulled revenue from those. So I think we could do the same thing with the electric vehicle chargers.
Before we have any more questions, we're going to go ahead and go through the other three candidate speeches first.
All right.
So,
Then I'm going to sit down.
who wants to go next?
I can't walk and talk.
And I can't talk and sit still.
Well, you can walk around while I talk. Get over there. For you all that don't know me, I'm Casey Frame, and I'm running for County Commissioner in District 3. I lived in Mason County all my life. I grew up in Sardis, graduated from Mason County High School, moved to Rectorville 53 years ago when I married Tony Frame. And I've been involved in farming all my life. We've raised beef cattle, soybeans, hay, corn, dairy. I even got up in the morning and milked cows, go to my 9-to-5 job at the medical office, and come back and do it again. And when our son was grown and got married, we decided he didn't need us anymore. So we got our CDLs, traveled across the country, and got to explore the country and get paid doing it also. It was fun. So, and I also have a retail background. I worked at Klein's at one time. And I've got 25 years' experience running a medical office and a trucking company. And I'm running for county commissioner because I believe our taxpayer money can be spent more wisely. We need good paying jobs, and of course the roads need repair. My road out my way got paved this year, and it's, because it's election year, it's true, and it'd been needing paved for like 10 years. And it so happened that when they paved it, it was the one that went right up to our farm. So that was nice. I appreciate that. I told the county commissioner I appreciated it. So, but, you know, our local fire departments, they have a lot of needs too. And, they need the best possible equipment. I know Orangeburg needs a lot, and a couple of the others. We need to, I intend to work with our economic developer and all the other sources we have out there, they're there, to make Mason County better, more prosperous. So, and we also need to look at wages of our salaried people, not salaried people, our hourly employees, because if you don't pay them good, you're not gonna keep them. And good people need to be paid well. So, let's see. I'm gonna bring up a touchy subject, solar. I'm not against solar, but I am against industrial solar. I don't believe that we need to be, farming is an outdoor industry. We don't need to be tearing up one outdoor industry to bring in another one that there's no statistics stating what's gonna happen in 30 years when these panels supposedly are no good, you know, that they're worn out. Wasteful spending needs to stop. We need to clean up our alleged dumping sites, or illegal dumping sites, not alleged. I intend to be a hands-on commissioner. I know it's gonna be a challenge, but I also know I'm up to it. I'm tough, and I don't give up, never. And I only want what's best for Mason County, I really do. And I'll be available to anyone that wants to listen, because there's not any problems that can't be worked out with a little bit of talk. And, of course, the actions of the physical court affects us all, you know, and there's so much that, that the citizens of Mason County don't realize how the money is being spent. And as Travis says, $22,000 car cannot even discuss at physical court. What a shame on them for not even talking about it. So, and if you're unhappy with the current physical court, November is your chance to change it. And I hope that you will, and I hope that I can get your vote on November the 8th. Thank you for listening to me.
All right, so, hi, my name's Jason Shepard, and I got in this race really for everybody sitting in this room because I watched the industrial solar topic all last year come to fruition, and during the public hearing that the Joint Planning Commission had, after the company spoke and after the group leader spoke, I watched individuals come up and speak. And what we observed was 62% of those individuals come out not really in favor of it. But then we proceeded with an ordinance, and the ordinance got passed in July. Well, that's the reason why I got in the race, because I sat there from last November and December thinking, what else can I do for these people, because I don't think their voices were heard. So I entered the race for those people alone. And a lot of, it's like Peggy was saying, it's about putting this on the farmland, and they're here after some of the best farmland the county has as a resource. And so anyhow, So the more I learned about what the scheme or the game is, these companies are wanting to put up thousands of acres of solar panels, and they're gonna sell tax credits to other companies, and then we're gonna be getting our power because power can't travel very far. It's gonna go onto the grid and then come back down to us. So if there's an issue with the power being generated by the solar farms, most likely all of us constituents in the county are gonna want to be suffering with power outages. Because there's a thing called voltage drop, and power can't travel great distances. So, you know, I don't know how many people really have taken that into consideration with this. And you look at 7,500 acres of leased land, but some of the maps they display, you know, encompass 24,000 acres. And the way the current ordinance is written right now, so I was the executive director of Citizens Voice, and through the primary election cycle process, knocking on doors and having conversations with people both for solar and against solar, one conversation with one individual led me to believe that the fiscal court was going to change the setbacks from 500 feet to 200 to 300 feet. And that's your current fiscal court. So I shared that with my group. We actually caught the judge off guard 2 days later, and just based off his reaction, I'm telling you, my heart and soul, that was going to happen. But it didn't happen because of the election year. So it's going to happen if you don't vote the right people in on November 8th. Okay? Those 500-foot setbacks are going to get changed. I believe in my heart and soul, or I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today for your consideration for a vote. That's the reason I got in the race. Since I got in the race, I've done some work. I will be fully transparent. This graph that's on the table is from 2016, year over year, the fiscal court by department and what's spent. Okay? Fiscal court didn't do this. I did this for you all. Travis's point about August fiscal court meeting, they passed the expenditure for the car and the newly acquired county credit card. Ms. Frame has been trying to get detail on what those receipts are, and as of, does anybody get an answer yet? They don't know what the expenditure was. How long does it take for a credit card bill to come? I know that they come routinely on the same day every month, so I find it amusing and interesting. Also too, since being involved in this campaign cycle, to what Travis was saying, I've got horses and dogs. I'm a big animal lover. I don't do enough for the community with regards to that, but I've wanted to meet with some of the shelter supporting groups. I finally got an opportunity to meet with them on August 30th. They came to my house. We had a 3-hour conversation. I provided a short-term plan and a long-term plan. Peggy and Travis were both there, and lo and behold, that was put in the paper, but it wasn't allowed to go to print. And I have copies of it over here if anyone wants to see it, and the article was posted on my Facebook page if you want to read it. Basically, it was, you know, get control of that, protect the animals, and then what I would like to do is use monkey surveys or surveys in the paper to get community input. Do we want to really have an animal shelter or do we not? Okay, it's your money. You tell me what you want to do with it, and I'll make it happen. I work currently as an engineer at Clopay, the Berry Global plant. I'm in charge of elastic film operation on 2 big extrusion lines, and it's a $30 million business. I'm also in charge of overseeing and helping our maintenance department manage our critical process equipment to keep the lines running day in and day out. All that equipment combines about $6 to $7 million. So I can work with the road department and see what their needs are. And that's something else that most people don't realize. Come to find out through listening to fiscal court sessions, listen to the road supervisor talk. Earlier this year, he mentioned they had 12 pieces of equipment, but only 6 are operational. So we're getting ready to go in snow season with 50% of our road fleet available to plow snow trucks. And an August fiscal court meeting, they brought it up, but no one acted. And he said, well, if we're gonna act on this, we need, you know, we can have the vehicle by January. But they didn't act until September, so now we'll be lucky to get it by February or March based on the way supply chain is. So the snow might be here and gone before the vehicle actually shows up. Speaking of salaries, I watched earlier in March on the fiscal court, the jailer brought up the topic about, she was asking for $2 more an hour to give her employees from 11 to 13 for the jail. With that proposal, that she brought to the fiscal court asking for more money, and listen to the treasurer said, even with the $2 an hour raise, she's still gonna be over budget on her salary by $240,000. So there's 20 people there. So I quickly did the math. I said, you could almost give them $4 to $5 more and still maintain that same budget number. But no one did that math, and I put that comment on Facebook, on fiscal court. So I'm asking for your vote and your consideration. You're only gonna have this one vote against this solar issue. Once the vote comes and gone, if you don't change your fiscal court, there's no stopping this.
Jason mentioned the salaries at the jail, but if you look across the county, we have no salary schedule in place. As an individual is hired, they are basically hired at whatever number their supervisor comes up with at the time they have the conversation. There is no chart to go to that says with this many years experience, here's what you make. And why does it matter at the jail? I mean, most people say, hey, they're inmates, treat them how you want. The jail is the county's largest liability. That is most likely where a lawsuit will occur. So if you don't have well-paid, ethical, good people working there, it's going to cost the county more money in the long run through lawsuits. That's why it matters.
So, you know, there've been some social media shares and things in the paper that the animal shelter is on the right track finally. I give a lot of credit to all the people that have raised concerns over the past few months, as well as the article that didn't get publicized, because without the public outcry, I don't think anything would have changed. But it's good to see that I'm not even in a role in having somewhat of an influence like other people are. So, thank you for your time, and we'll let Paula have a say.
Good evening. As Travis mentioned, my name is Paula Kopenauer. I'm running for County Commissioner, 1st District for Mason County. And the reason that I was prompted to run was when we got our property taxes after moving to Mason County a few years ago, which has also been in question about, you know, where I'm from. And while I'm not from Mason County, born and raised, this is my home. I live here. And we've even bought my mother a home here. So she's less than a half a mile away. Maybe a little too close, but we've got her here nonetheless. So when I got my property taxes, they were exactly the same as when I lived in Fleming County. However, the house that we purchased here in Mason County was about a third of the cost of the home that we owned in Fleming County. So about 2.5% more than what the average property taxes are across the state of Kentucky. So it, you know, made me curious as to why, you know, what's going on with our county budget. And so I picked it up and was really shocked by a lot of the spending, you know, as Peggy mentioned, some wasteful spending, and I think everyone's mentioned here this evening, there's a lot of money spent. Something that stuck out to me was the contracted work that we have out on our county highways, picking up trash. And we pay contractors to go out and do that when we have county inmates that are supervised on a regular basis anyways, not out there, you know, giving back to their community. So why not have those inmates that have been approved, safe to go into the community and work, out there giving back to their community? And it will alleviate a lot of the money, even using county offices and on grounds. You know, we have paying jobs, hourly rates that cut the grass on, you know, county and city property for that matter, that could be eliminated. So that is something that caused me to run. And then, you know, on the community forum a couple of weeks ago, they mentioned drug and crime. And there's no urgency here. There's no urgency for it. They talked about, you know, we talked about it 2 years ago, we're talking about it now, and we'll talk about it in 2 more years. So that, you know, sparked a little fire under me as to why are we just passing the buck? It's a problem in our community. And so we've got to identify it first and accept it. It's here. We're all affected by it, whether it be family, friends, co-workers, or maybe even a victim of crime. You You know, maybe you've been robbed, your house broke into. And so we've got to work to get the resources here to fight addiction. If we don't have the resources here and we continue to throw in our county jail, they're gonna continue to return. The recidivism rate for incarceration in county jails is about 80%. Across Kentucky, they use drug court for all of their drug offenders, and it works successfully. Anywhere from 5% to 20% recidivism rate using drug court. So it's a lot tougher than probation. You've got your thumb on them, and they have to, you know, be monitored on a weekly basis. We do have it here in the county, but it's not a used resource a lot of the time. So if we can work with all of the counterparts here within the county, I think that can certainly help the budget of the jail, and then also help our citizens here to get them back to, you know, productive citizens here that can contribute. They've all got skills. You know, the problem with addiction, it doesn't discriminate. There's all types, doctors, lawyers, the cook, you know, that feeds us every day. We go out to eat. So I think it's something that we really have to address. And by working with a lot of different parts, you know, we can get that here. You know, AA meetings, that's something that should be in every town. And there are some here, but we need to get them more widely available at all times of the day for different working schedules. So that's all I've got. Any questions?
Yeah, so any questions for any four of us? Yes.
I realize that, planning and zoning set the setbacks, but I'm like you, I believe after the election, they will try to change the setbacks, and from November to January 1st, they can do pretty much what they want to.
Yeah, they can. So one of the fiscal court has four primary responsibilities, and zone planning and zoning is one of those things. Okay, so we have a joint planning commission that come up with zoning and ordinances, and then it comes to the fiscal court, and then we vote on that, and we can make amendments or adjustments at that point in time. And then again, any ordinance can be also amended by another ordinance. That's the Kentucky State statute law. So all of those people that have wished or wanted this on a ballot, it's on your ballot. It's just depending on who you're voting for. I've been in, so that's why I got in this race, is for everyone else to have one last final say in the matter. It's your county. I'll do what you tell me to do.
Having been on fiscal court as a county commissioner, I can tell you it's a rare bird that will ask questions. And that's part of our problem.
Yes.
Everyone votes in consensus on our current fiscal court. And that was another thing that stuck out to me, is why aren't we asking those tough questions? You know, if we're gonna spend citizens' money, we need to know the why behind it.
So, I'm sure a lot of your all's conversations took place outside, you know, emails,
I
et
can
cetera.
promise you,
But,
they did not do
so,
that for me.
when I was superintendent, you know, I worked for a 5-member school board that was elected. And I didn't work with them, I worked for them. But we had an unwritten rule that anything we were gonna discuss, because I was presenting most of the things for them to discuss, we were gonna ask 3 questions. Just to keep everybody at the table honest and engaged. If you're not asking questions, you look disengaged and like you're just rubber stamping everything. So let's ask, you know, 2 or 3 good questions about each thing that we're putting on the table, so that we all, make sure we all fully understand what we're voting on.
Well, I've attended the fiscal court meetings, every one for the last year. And I can't tell you any major, item that they paid for that was discussed. I was floored when they didn't even discuss the $22,000 car and the $10,000 credit card. And I asked about the credit card, you don't go there. They don't appreciate you going in and asking them. They get mad, fired.
As a county commissioner, they didn't appreciate me
The county
asking.
commissioner, I had one county, and I asked the county commissioners, I said, called all 3 of them, and I said, what is the credit card for? Well, I don't know, said one of them told me, said, well, I see the credit card I saw it 3-4 days before the meeting, and I said, well, can't you tell me what one of the big ticket items was on that card? No, I don't remember.
Peggy, didn't they tell you that they only just recently got a credit card?
Yeah, they told me that this is the first credit card that the fiscal court ever had.
Yeah, there wasn't, we did not have one, or the county did not have one.
Right, and always, they told me that the judge always put all of the expenses, hotel rooms, everything on his credit card. I don't know if that's true or not.
Then turn it in.
Probably for
Yeah.
reimbursement.
But now, when I went in to question Kim about the credit card, of course, I didn't get an answer. I said, well, don't they bring you the receipts? I didn't get an answer for that one. She said, I can't tell you because I don't have the bill.
Well,
So the card was new, presented in August and approved to cover an expense up to $10,000.
And the $10,000 credit card was brought up in September, and only because I had been questioning and asking questions
Since August.
since August. It
But they-
wasn't brought up at all during August, and it was on there, they had paid it.
So they did bring up, one commissioner did ask what was the purpose of the credit card, and the treasurer gave a good answer, but she still also said that she hadn't received the bill yet. So,
what, if she gave a good answer, what was it?
so the answer was that they got it because of training and booking hotels and stuff for the commissioners to go to, which, it makes sense, because you have to do a lot of this stuff with a credit card now. And so, the message that was presented, that's recorded on Facebook, is going to be sellable to the general public. But the fact is that they still don't know what they spent the $10,000 for.
Well, I would ask too, if it's for travel, then why did the county spend $10,000 on travel and training in 30 days' time? If that's the
Well,
purpose of it.
one of the
Yeah, what
things,
it says is, and I'll pass this around, it says, when the invoice is received not to exceed $10,000.
Yeah.
But the question is,
Up in court this time, it wasn't, the main thing they were discussing was, who's got the credit card, where's it hid, where's it kept at? That was the main thing.
yeah,
Was you there, Travis, when they were talking about that? Was you, Jason? I don't remember.
that was it. Yep.
Yeah, it was mainly just, there was no, none of the commissioners asked, what is on the credit card? All it was to tell you that, yes, we have it, and we keep it in a safe.
And there was a business that came in called Patient Tech in 2019, that got some state grant money, no, federal grant money.
Community money.
And we paid them $460-some thousand, and they haven't produced one job yet. So I don't know why,
where that money went.
and it's even, they're on this year's budget, I don't know why they're still on our budget for this year. If they haven't produced a job. would
did
think
you
we-
say they paid $460,000 to,
The community-based bonds or grants.
It's a federal grant,
Yeah.
may not have been spent yet.
well, I don't know if it's been spent, it's on the budget, but that's what the total is $467,000.
If it's COVID money, what has started out,
No, it
This
wasn't
is
big
not
No,
money.
this
It
is-
was before
Yes,
that.
actually, a line item says Patient Tech.
This is some economic development grants that came through
Yeah.
the state and through the county that they redistribute to attract local businesses.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in 2019, there was a big press release, big celebration about this company coming to bring 150 jobs. All this money set aside for them, and not one job created today.
And if you look out there on the billboard by Chrysler, or it used to be Chrysler, I think that's what it is, they have the Patient Tech company name up, and there's no company. I mean, it
They,
may be
they
one
do
job,
have a section of the building leased back there, but
Right.
there's nobody.
but there's no jobs.
So we've lost 350 jobs in the last 5 years, since 2017 here in Mason County.
And we're getting ready to lose another one probably.
And one thing I would share with the community, if you haven't liked what you've seen over the last 30 years, or last 15 years, the current fiscal court has a tenure collectively of 31 years. So they've all been there for at least 10 to 12 years on average, I'm sorry, 8 to 10 years on average. So if you don't like what's going on here in Mason County, vote for change. Don't vote for the name, and go to the ballot box on November 8th. And I can assure you that I will ask the tough questions. Travis is an impeccable leader here, and I believe that Peggy and Jason and I can work as a team. And that's what we have to do, is work as a team, ask one another tough questions, maybe not always agree, and then find the best resolution that makes sense for Mason County.
When you go,
Go ahead, Peggy.
when you go into a fiscal court meeting and they're going through everything, you never hear a question. It's yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, about everything. And I have attended some with Annette, and I know that Annette asks questions. But these three don't. Joe McKay will ask a question, but it's not really what I would call a debatable question, you know?
More superficial.
Yes, that would be a good one, do more, yeah.
So, I think we're at a real tipping point in Mason County right now. We stand a chance in 20 days to flip the entire Mason County fiscal court, and that's never been done before. But we gotta get folks out to vote. We have, Jason and I punched the voter numbers. We need about 3,000 votes to win. Is that about right? That's considered a 45% voter turnout. In a non-presidential election year, non-gubernatorial election year, that's probably about, that'd be a little high maybe, but we figure about 3,000 votes it's gonna take. So that's a lot of folks coming out to vote and pulling levers. So talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, tell them they gotta get out and vote on November 8th. And just one more thing about my competition. You guys seen the commercial on TV? We know it, that it's an insurance commercial, and the guy says, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. My competition has not seen anything. He's not making big things happen. If you look at my background, I've done just about a job that applies to some part of being the county judge executive. Roads department, I've worked construction. That's why I came to Maysville, actually. I started working construction for my Uncle Rick. Sheriff's department. As part of my military, I've done 2 tours in Iraq doing military police work, to include time at Abu Ghraib prison. The time at Abu Ghraib prison, doing care, custody, and control of 5,000 detainees, puts me well suited to understand a little bit about what we're doing at the jail. The landfill. Again, that's basically the science background that I come from. How do we manage that landfill out there, the landfill space? How do we do the recycling? There's almost no part of this job that I don't have some level of experience at, to where I can talk intelligently with the other elected officials who I'll work with to help solve problems. Because you have to have that base understanding of the problem in order to help come up with a good solution. I think we do you a great job as your fiscal court for the next 4 years, so we're asking for your vote and for you to get out and get your friends out to vote on November 8th. We ask for your vote.
Any other questions?
Jason, what are the current solar setbacks?
So right now you have a 500-foot setback from a private property line. If you live on 5 acres or smaller, there's 2 criteria. One is it's either 500 feet or 650 feet from the house, whatever's greater would be there. Wait, no, that's 10 acres. If you're 5 acres or less, it's 700. There's 2 criteria, but basically it's 500 feet or whatever's greater, depending on your 5 or 10 acre parcel of land that you live on. From the road frontage, it's 250 feet, I think, from the center of the scenic byway on 68, where the first panels could be placed. Or if it's 50 foot from another road. And there's some other criteria in there, but those are the big ones. Yeah.
I want to say something to Travis, and this is a compliment.
I don't get those very often, so
No.
speak slowly so I can enjoy it.
I'll try not to.
Remember, I work a lot with that guy. You don't get a lot of compliments from that guy.
Well, your message tonight was the best message I've heard you give.
Well, thanks.
Can you put that on your Facebook?
We're Facebook Live right now.
I love it. Seriously, your message tonight was the best message I've heard you give.
Well, thank you. I've been practicing.
So one of the other things besides planning and zoning is infrastructure. And, concerning some of the city commissions, and they might speak to it too, is we have a pretty good water problem in the county. We need to spend about $11 million to fix it all.
Is that the county or the city?
To me, it's infrastructure, and if the fiscal court's responsible for infrastructure, we need to be helping. I don't know if they're helping, because I don't see a lot of county commissioners at the city commissioners meetings all the time. So, I don't know how you solve problems without working together as a team. So just to give you an example, the water line, my understanding, long run 11 wasn't properly bedded, so it's been breaking, and that's why we're having so many boil warnings this year. The water tower on 324, the backup pump, this was back in May, at that point in time, was not operational. So if the main pump goes down, there's gonna be a lot of water for a long period of time, and that's not good for agricultural people that raise animals to feed and stuff. They need water every day, so. Any other questions? Yes, you got it.
My question's for Paula. In the last few weeks or so, I've probably had 5 or 6 people come up to me on the side, because I'm with Jason, and ask me what your stance is on industrial scale solar.
So, you know, I don't know a lot about it, pro versus con, but throughout a lot of the questions that I've had over the last couple of weeks as well, you know, I looked back at the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, and do we infringe upon the pursuit of happiness when we begin telling people what to do with their land? Now, you know, I have some other concerns in regards to solar as to what happens, you know, to get rid of these panels 30 years down the road. You know, what type of recycling needs to be done so we don't have contamination waterways, and I know there's rare earth minerals in those panels, and, you know, something that could, you know, cause us an issue. I also looked at the ordinances that are in place, and, you know, I heard a lot of acreage mentioned. What did you say, Jason? How many?
So right now, there's 7,500 acres leased to lease. But when you look, so there's 3 solar companies that came and actually participated in public engagement meetings, and their maps were just big broadcast maps, but that on top of what's been leased to lease, so we're at 24,000 acres potentially. But there's at least a dozen or more companies that are sending letters out to farmers asking people to sell their land so they can buy it and come in here. So when you think about power generation on that massive scale in Mason County, and for every 2,500 acres you have 4 or 5 jobs, versus Eastern Kentucky Power, which employs people here and provides stable power, where solar power is not stable. It's intermittent. If the sun comes up and you get maximized power between 10 and 2 o'clock in the day.
Yeah, there's 4.5 hours of peak time for solar panels here in the state of Kentucky. I do know that.
Yes.
And which isn't a lot of time if you think about it from the solar perspective. So is it viable? Which I know is still being decided upon into the power lines from the electric company standpoint. So from the way I understand it, well, it's been approved from the fiscal court. It's not even still a known option if it can be a viable profitability for landowners, the companies that's bringing it in here. So do we act too fast to try to overturn something we don't know if we need to yet? I don't know. Does it become a legal ramification against the county if we overturn things? I don't know the answer to that either. And so I don't feel like I can stand up here and say, yes, I'm for it, or no, I'm not. I know that there's, you know, freedoms that I would like to think that I have as a property owner, and how do we not infringe on those? I don't want somebody to tell me where I can put a gazebo on my property out in the county. What I was saying about ordinances though, with the 500 feet from a property line, and I believe there was maybe even some foliage or trees that they were gonna put in there to block that. Is it something that we even see? I don't know the answer to that either yet at this point. So there's a lot of unknown for me. And I feel like we also, you know, with our joint planning commission, those are people that we've asked to do a job and they made a recommendation. So is it wasteful that we go back and we overturn it? I don't know, you know, so there's a lot of things at hand because I can't see a lot of the minutes on the fiscal court. They're not, well, they're recently available, Travis said, but I can't see those things. So for me to stand up here and give it a concrete opinion of if I'm for it or against it, I don't feel is a responsible way to go about it. To maybe gain a vote or popularity against someone, I wanna be transparent and honest and do the right thing. And so, well, I know that's not what you wanna hear. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I guess the reason I got kind of so adamant against it is the application of what's being presented here, because you're all paying for it. Everyone in here is gonna pay for this. And the only people that actually financially benefit from it, when you really look at the math and economics, is the landowner. Okay? For 1,000 acres converted into solar, we're gonna get a net $86,000 in real estate taxes. And half of that goes to the school. Okay, so now the county, the fiscal court budget's gonna get half of that money to the fiscal court. Once the school gets that money, the SEEK program kicks into the county. And so 90% of that $43,000 going to the school is gonna get taken away by the state and redistributed throughout the school system in Kentucky, because that's how that works. The pro solar people know that's true, because they went and vetted it. Rick Ross came out and spoke on that behalf, and got really, you know, they really attacked him for him being speaking the truth on the subject. So, is 1,000 acres worth $43,000? Think of the damage that could be done and how many hundreds of thousands or millions it could be for the county to be responsible for. I don't see it as fiscal responsibility of the county to let this in right now. I'm not saying it can't happen in the future, but I would be more advocate for a community program. How many acres of solar panels do we need for power everyone's home in here? About 4,000 to power your house for every home in this county for a day. And, you know, we need to look at something like behind the meter to help. We have a 24% poverty rate in Mason County. We need to help our county be more economically viable. Any other questions?
We don't need to destroy good farmland either, because go to the grocery store, see, look at the shelves.
And think about the 16-year-old, or the 16 or 18-year-old that's gonna graduate that wants to be a farmer, and we tie up land for 30 years or 50 years, and take a livelihood away from them, and they gotta move somewhere else. I don't know, there's just so many different interactions I don't think we fully vetted and took into consideration on this topic.
Jason,
Yeah.
if I may, I mean, I've watched Paula go back and forth on the solar issue. One topic she brought up, and she didn't really hit on today, but I've heard at home, was the question of, it's already passed, so the industrial solar companies have started investment, whether it be going and looking for viable land, making contracts, bringing in attorneys, you know, researching deeds. If the fiscal court overturns that, is there any chance of a liability coming back on the county?
So I think the solar companies, they signed a lot of the leases 3 or 4 years ago, and a lot of those leases are getting ready to expire. There were 5-year leases that had the option to put solar on a farm.
Okay.
So the farmers have been getting some little payments, nothing outlandish, you know,
Right.
for just to have the option to come in there. With the setbacks currently imposed with the ordinance that was passed, I think a lot of those companies are probably pulling back a little bit.
Okay.
Because they have to have X number of acres of panels, not just X number of acres leased. So if, let's say they have to have 100, I'm just gonna make these numbers up, okay? Let's say they have to have 100,000 panels out there to be viable for what they wanna do. Well, they lease your farm, not all that farm is suitable for solar panels.
Right.
You can't be over a 10% grade, blah, 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 there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. So right now, they're scrambling to find more land to even be able to think about it. So that's the first hurdle. They gotta find more land, they don't have enough, because of the setbacks took away a lot of the usable acreage. The second thing is, they still don't have leases signed with the companies to agree to push the power onto the transmission lines.
Right.
So
Okay.
they haven't even gotten that approval yet, so that's two huge hurdles. Even if they were to decide to start a project, given that, if they fix all those issues, they're still looking at 2 to 3 years out.
Okay, all right,
So
so,
before a first solar panel would ever pop up in the county.
yeah, that was a question that I overheard. I was ear hustling the phone and overheard her talking about, was, you know, do we tie the county up in a court battle and a battle with these solar companies for 2 years?
Does anybody remember a project that was supposed to come in here 12 or 15 years ago called Maplewood or
Yeah.
Wildwood?
Wildwood.
Does anybody remember Wildwood? Wildwood was gonna transform Mason County into a tourist capital of the world. And they were going around trying to get options to buy farms.
Yeah,
It died.
right.
And, you know, I'm thinking, we're probably looking at the same thing,
And
you
that's
know?
where I'm at with it, is because we don't have approval from the grid line and all of that, you know, are we too premature wasting our time to allocate on something that, you know, is more impeding and needs an urgency? And again, Jason and I haven't had the discussion of solar, just one-on-one. I asked him to the other night, but if you can believe it, I haven't had the discussion with him,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that he can teach me a few things too. But my objective is to be honest and transparent and do the right thing. That makes sense. And whatever that may be, you know, down the road is how I will act for the whole of Mason County. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Any final questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Because Travis, you said that was a 10% grade. Was that a definite number, or is that a number that you just had off your top of
No,
your?
that's
That's a definite.
that's a number that I've heard the solar companies say.
Okay,
They prefer 5% grades or better, but they can work with 10%.
okay, so they're gonna take pristine land.
Yes.
Or they're gonna bulldoze it,
They're gonna take pristine land.
and they're gonna bulldoze it to make it what they want.
Any other questions? All right, without further ado, we'll bring up the remaining 4 candidates.
Our city folks.
Thank you.
You're not really, you're a countywide candidate, so we're.
And I just, you know, just because of commissions for district, you get to vote for all 3 county commissioners, so make sure you tell people that. Go ahead.
So those of you who all don't know me, I'm Dr. Consuela Alley. I am a board certified family practice physician who has been in Mason County for the past 22 years. I've been in practice for 27 years. So yes, that makes me old. My office currently is in Georgetown, Ohio, but I live in Mason County. I've lived in Mason County for 22 years, raised my kids here. And so Mason County is near and dear to my heart. This is the longest place I've ever lived in my entire life. So, it's not saying a whole lot. So I am running just because I have experience to be coroner. Again, being a family practice doctor with lots of training behind me. I've had a fair amount of years of emergency room training. I am also a hospice physician, so that also helps to qualify me in death and dying and those kind of things. I am active in Mason County. I do the child abuse exams for the Child Advocacy Center here in town, and have done so for the past 10 years. Also, am on the board for Ripley Life Squad, and am active with Washington Volunteer Fire Department. So, if I look familiar, but you're not kind of sure where you saw me, I play Mrs. Claus every year with Washington Fire Department, and my husband is Santa. So we have a lot of fun with that. But it's a great fundraiser for us, and I think we do a great job with the community as far as that goes. Looking around, when it was first brought up to me, you should run for coroner. I'm like, what? Me? Well, Ohio, you have to be a physician. You have to be a board certified physician to be coroner. Several of our surrounding counties are physicians. So I would like to just see that qualification, if you're in Mason County, and us to be able to have those bragging rights as well. I love to learn new things, and I just think that would qualify me as well. I know there's extra training, things I've not done, but would love to learn that as well, so be even more active in the community as far as being born. So appreciate your vote. Any questions? Short, sweet, and simple. Okay.
I'm Lori Oldenburg-Beck, and I'm running for Maysville City Commission.
Laura, could you speak up a little?
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Sorry.
Lori Oldenburg-Beck, and I'm a lifelong resident and born in Hazelwood. And I got into, I'm a volunteer, of course, at my kids' schools. But I lost my father a few years back, and I found that for me to help with what I was going through, I started getting involved more with the community, doing more things for Maysville on my own, just as a volunteer. So some a little bit of, I'm very committed, trustworthy, honest, I'm a hard worker. I also have an ability to unite people for a common goal. Another good thing that I think is I'm not a politician so far. I'm just new, and I have passionate ideas, and I think I have ways that I can make Maysville a better place for everyone, not just certain people. I fought hard to keep our library downtown Maysville when it was proposed to be moved out on the hill, and I wanted it to be where everyone could, if you didn't have a car, if you only, could only get there certain hours, I just thought that it was super important for our residents to be able to have an accessible library. I kind of did, I started something at Beechwood Park. I took my kids there, and I realized it was kind of unloved, and weeds were everywhere, and it wasn't the kind of park you wanted that would be welcoming. So I started on my own to do a beautification project and a cleanup, and I got lots of volunteers involved with that. I'm also a former Main Street board member. Some things, of course, that I would like to see: more jobs with good pay in Maysville. I'd like to see incentives for for commercial new builds, downtown and residential, commercial. I'd also like to see a grant writer within the city hall walls. I know for sure in Ripley, they just got, thinking, is it $4 million that they received for their, a grant on the river, new boat docks.
Put a new boat dock in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, $4 million. And people worked really hard at that, personal residents and people in Ripley. And I think that's an untapped resource here in Maysville. We're a river town, but we don't offer gas, we don't have restaurants, anything there, and I would like to see a better riverfront presence. More walking trails, bike paths. I would like all of our city sidewalks to be handicap accessible. I would like to see more green spaces, park improvements. I am definitely a person for historic preservation, and I'm very much against tearing down our old homes when we have a shortage of affordable living for our residents. I'd also like to see a think tank created to help solve our Hazelwood Hospital dilemma. That needs to definitely be addressed. I decided to run. I just have a big desire to help others, and I also didn't know that others had put their name in. I thought everyone was going unopposed, that the current city commissioners were going unopposed, and I think that is sad, and I didn't want to see that happen. So, thank you for inviting me today too. Thank you.
So my name's Noah Cobb. I'm running for the Maysville City Commission. The reason I ran is because some of the city resources that we have maybe not be fully optimized the way they should be. City Fire Department does a wonderful job, but they have a lot of issues inside that need to be addressed with manpower, personnel, and paying. You know, the salaries aren't great down there. And same with the police department. The police department does a wonderful job, but they need some help with funding and making sure that everybody has what they need to do their job. So I volunteer at the Washington Fire Department. I've done it now for almost 7 years out there. I've been a volunteer firefighter for 14 years, state of Kentucky, and it's just I understand and work well with local law enforcement and fire departments, and I understand what they need. So I'll appreciate your vote for Noah Cobb for City Commission. Thank you.
How many city residents are here? Couple. Other than candidates. Okay, great. Mostly candidates. So I'm going to be talking a lot to this camera over here. My name is David Doyle, and I'm running for city commission as well. Real quick, there's a 2-page flyer on the desk, so if you want to find out about me, take that, read it. It gives you a lot of information. For those that are watching on Facebook, you can go to David Doyle, the number 4, Maysville.com, and you can get a lot of that information. Or send me an email that's on that website, and I'll send it to you. Real briefly, I started in the insurance business in 1976, so I kind of experienced it that. 30 years of that was in management. I managed small areas, and I managed big areas. The Allstate Insurance Company, at one time, I was responsible for Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. Another company, I had Texas and New Mexico, and Georgia and Florida. Over 400 employees, big expense budgets, as you can imagine. I know what it is to make those decisions. Corporate, strategic planning decisions. All of that, I think, is directly relatable to being your city commissioner. Why? Why am I doing this? I spent my whole life thinking about public service. And I'm kind of partial to the insurance business. I feel like I do a public service when I do that. Because I'll have customers that call me at 2 o'clock in the morning crying that their house is on fire. So I got to talk them down. I got to talk them off the cliff. Say, hey, it's going to be okay. You know, we're going to take care of it. It's kind of the same thing in being a city commissioner. We need to take care of our people. Hearing the county candidates talking about meetings, and there's not a whole lot of conversation in those meetings. Same thing at the city. We've got people on city commission that have been there a long time. I just think it's time to make a change. It's time to have some new ideas, some fresh eyes, and I want to be those eyes. 30 years ago, I married Maysville native Mary Breslin. Best decision I ever made in my life. On July the 1st, she looked at me like I was crazy. On July the 1st, I still have 7 years left on my employment contract. I signed that away. I gave that up. I got a little bit of money, but I ended that contract because come January 1, I want to work for you and you. When I joined the Allstate Insurance Company and I was given Western Kentucky and they'd fired 6 managers prior to that, the vice president looked at me and said, I think you're the guy that can do it. You know what? I'm going to give you 2 years to get it done. And if you don't, I'm going to fire you. Well, they fired the last 6 guys that were there. I got it done in 18 months. And I want to do the same thing for the city. I want to work for the city. I want to make the right decisions. They were talking about crime and drugs. Yeah, we've been talking about that for years. And it's every city. I've relocated 11 times in my corporate career. So I've lived in a lot of cities. Thank God she hasn't divorced me. But that means I saw a lot of cities and how they operate. Well, it's all over the country. It's not just Maysville. Crime and drugs is part of it. In my opinion, we don't hold people accountable in Maysville. I've been watching the court records for the last 3 years. I don't know if you do that, but I watch the court records in the newspaper. Time after time. Fines are suspended or pre-trial conference. That just means you go in there, do a plea deal and get out, and they're out before the ink dries on the police officer's report. Well, how would you feel if you were a police officer thinking, I gotta go out here and maybe get in a fight, maybe get shot at, maybe get in a real altercation situation, and this yahoo is gonna be back out on the street before I have my next meal? It's not right. We gotta hold people accountable. So I like what the county people are saying, because that's what's gonna have to happen. Now, quite honestly, the jail is not part of the city, but it's extremely important to me, and I'm ready to get on the wagon with the county commissioners and push this thing going. We just need to get something done so that each time we're going to the polls to vote, we don't say, well, crime and drugs, there it is again. I will give credit to one individual at the forum who said, we've been talking about this, but we haven't done anything about it. So it's time we do something about it. So last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up. I'm asking you to vote for me on November the 8th because my wife wants me out of the house since I've given up my full-time job. So you gotta vote for me. But I appreciate your vote. I'm ready to go. Any questions? Thank you.
So is there any questions for the city folks, for the city commissioner candidates?
Were any of you guys aware of a survey that the University of Kentucky Transportation Department did 7 years ago that said Maysville was a prime location for a port due to the multimodal traffic increase up and down the Ohio River? Because we have the railroad track here that runs into Paris, and never seen any action upon it. The only thing that I seen was that report that was done for us 7 years ago, sitting out in the cyber world, and something that can be acted upon, create a ton of jobs, increase tourism. You know, could you imagine if we did have a boat marina out there, something similar to Ripley or something along those lines? Not saying that the county or city is in the operation of starting a business, but we can help people do that or find the right people to come in here and do it, so.
We have a few signs back here if anybody would like a Rand Paul sign, or bumper sticker, or anything for Rand.
Well, thank you all for coming out.
Yeah.
Thank you all candidates for speaking.
Thanks to everybody. We know your time's valuable, and there's other places you could be tonight, but we appreciate you being here and listening to us. And please spread the word to your family and friends. Get out and vote November 8th.
Thank you.